Hello and welcome to this edition of Press Conference. I'm your host, Jim Delorenzo, the principal of Jim Delorenzo Public Relations. You can find me online at jimdelorenzo.com. I have found that my career in public relations is my true vocation, telling the stories of my clients and colleagues in a compelling way to drive sales, membership, and awareness. I've been blessed in my career, and I have many ideas that might be helpful to you. Please feel free to contact me directly, either by email at jimdelorenzo.com or at jim@jhdenterprises.com, or by cell phone or text message at 215-266-5943. I would enjoy a conversation with you about how public relations can help you. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. My guest today is someone I've met in the last year as we are adapting to new ways to interact with people in the world through our online channels. I met Antonio Visconti, the CEO of SOBEREYE, through LinkedIn and some connections that we made in the summer of 2020. Antonio is an entrepreneur, an executive, and an inventor. Driven by his strong entrepreneurial spirit over the last 25 years, Antonio has managed and grown businesses from small startups to large enterprise organizations. He got interested in the idea of detecting workplace impairment when realizing that the marijuana legalization trend in the United States and elsewhere was clearly challenging the way businesses approached the issue of workplace drug use. Inspired by seeing police looking at people's eyes to check for intoxication, Antonio investigated the use of mobile phone technology to make accurate and objective pupillary light reflex measurements and founded SOBEREYE in 2016. Developed in collaboration with experts in neuroscience, ophthalmology, image processing, and iris recognition, SOBEREYE provides a unique and innovative solution to detect the risk of impairment on the job when it matters most to save lives. I'm pleased to welcome Antonio Visconti to our show today. Antonio, we've had a lot of discussions over the last several months, and I'm very grateful to have you on the show today.
My pleasure to be here, Jim.
Now, when we talk about the legalization of marijuana across the United States and in other nations and cities, obviously it is a trend that is continuing to grow. Every election season brings a new spur to make those changes. What did you see as the need for impairment testing because of the legalization of marijuana in these places? Tell me from your experience why SOBEREYE came into existence.
Well, legalization of marijuana, it's a wave that, it's just, involving so many places around the world. And the challenge of this legalization, or at least what I want to say, it presents a challenge. It's a challenge for workplace that they have tried to implement drug testing. They have drug testing policy in place, because the marijuana is really peculiar among all the drugs that you can test for, and it is that marijuana stays in your system for many weeks after consumption, and so this means that it's very easy that somebody, even if he has an occasional use of marijuana and goes to work and gets tested, then is found positive with all the implication of that situation. Maybe losing the job, or maybe sent to rehab, even though the person is not a drug addict, not a regular user. And so when I realized these issues, I said, well, I think there is a need for a solution that helps to distinguish this situation.
Yeah.
And so, as you correctly said in the beginning, I was inspired by the fact that the police looks in people's eyes. That's the way that they, try to identify the impairment. And so that's, sort of the light that says, hey, let's look at a way to make that thing easy to use instead of having an expert, but can we make it this automatic and effective? And so that's where everything started. And we have developed this technology that utilize a smartphone inside an opaque enclosure to make pupillary reflex measurements.
And it's interesting that you have that platform to work with, because a lot of times, from what I'm hearing from people, when they do drug testing or they check for a workplace impairment, there's a lot of different testing modes or equipment that they use, whether it be a urine test or a blood test or a breath test. Those things might not necessarily be the most efficient way to test those employees. And it's also kind of impersonal, or it's invasive for those employees, because they have to submit to this, and it really is difficult for them to be kind of, if you would, coerced into doing something that might be against their will.
Oh, certainly, because a drug test it's a huge invasion of privacy, and actually, if you go a little bit further than the superficial aspect of people thinking that, oh, I do drug tests so people will not do drugs on the job. Well, the reality is that doesn't happen, because drug use, it's an all-time high. So drug tests really do not work as a deterrent. But more important, why they are ineffective is because a drug test does not tell that the person is impaired or is under the influence at the time of the test. A drug test, and doesn't matter what is it, urine, saliva, or hair, and any of those tests, they only can find trace of the drug that they are testing for, so that molecule inside your body. And so this is a looking back, because this is what means that somebody has been using that substance that the drug test is testing for in the last several days. And as I said initially, in the case of marijuana, we're talking weeks. And so, again, you do not find out that the person is intoxicated at the time of the test. You only find that the person has been using it. And if I can go back to the concept of marijuana, now legalization of marijuana means that marijuana is a lot more socially acceptable.
Sure.
So the fact that somebody may, just casually, you go to a party, meet friend, like, we always been offered a drink. So have a glass of wine, have a glass of beer. Well, now we're extremely normal and acceptable. Nobody gets upset if somebody says, hey, here is an edible, right? A brownie infused with marijuana, gummy bears, or even a soft drink. And so that the opportunity for somebody to consume it just, it's very common. And again, you go to work, you get the drug test, and you start a huge problem for yourself, sure, but also for your employer, because it's not like that you find somebody that is positive to a marijuana test and the person is a good worker, and whatever is your policy that you have to either fire them so you lose a good employees just because they was offered a marijuana infused gummy bear to a party, and then you have to hire somebody else, and again, that's an expense, right?
Sure.
Or in some jurisdiction, they require that before you fire somebody for drug use, you send them to rehab. And again, what's the consequence here?
Yeah.
Is the fact that the cost of doing that, a person that just had an occasional, again, marijuana infused gummy bear, now he needs to go to rehab. I mean, think about the stress and the problem there. And
sure,
again, you're not finding out that the person is impaired on the job. Let me also make another point about our technology, because we started with the idea of marijuana. Marijuana was really the trigger. But because we look at the eyes of the people that are controlled by the brain, because what we test is the pupillary light reflex, that is an involuntary reflex. There is nothing that a person consciously can do to control that reflex. So it's really a picture of the state of the brain at the time of the test. Our test does not detect impairment just because of drugs, but really for a lot of other reasons,
Sure.
sleep deprivation, illness, like somebody maybe had a brain trauma. And again, let's not forget that also prescription drugs
Sure.
can affect a person when they go to work. There are a lot of opioid-based painkillers, or you can imagine allergy medication. They all have a side effect, and sometimes the side effect may be serious, and we have really nothing to test for that, and that's where our solution is really helpful.
And I think also the fatigue element that you mentioned is something that is very important to be able to test for, and people might not necessarily be tested for that if they're taking a urine test or a blood test or a hair sample. But with the checking the eyes, as you said, using the pupillary reflexes, you can detect, hey, this person didn't get enough sleep last night, or this person is really tired, probably should not be operating the forklift today, things like that. I think that's a very interesting other aspect of what SOBEREYE does. Antonio, how does the test work?
Oh, it's very simple. We have an opaque enclosure that people put over their eyes, and when they do that, the unit starts providing the voice instructions. So they get a countdown where they have just to keep their eyes closed so they adapt to darkness. And then a light turns on for 4 seconds, and the only thing that people need to do is open their eyes for 4 seconds and do not blink. Very simple. So I suggest that whoever is listening to go on our website, SOBEREYE.com, where they will find videos that will show the unit and will show how the test works. We have been obsessed by the fact of making the test as easy as possible, because you're talking about something that people need to do very often, every day, and so it should not interfere with people going to work, and they should be feeling very comfortable. And one of the important aspects of our technology is that it is a self-test. So just people come to, when they start the shift, they pick up the unit, they test, takes 1 minute, and they keep going.
I think it's neat that it's I use the word neat, showing my age there, but it's a 1-minute test, and they can do it themselves, and they have the results quickly, and then they can either get on with their day, or they see what they have to fix and they take care of it. I think that's an interesting part of it. Antonio, we're going to take a quick break for some commercial messages, but when we come back, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the test and how it works, and how some companies are using this to improve their workplace efficiency and cut down on workplace impairment. So we'll be right back after these messages with Antonio Visconti of SOBEREYE.
Boardwalks built for fun. Legendary rock and roll clubs.
This is how we do it. Hip hop.
Casinos by the ocean.
Hip hop.
Now that's New Jersey. 130 miles of beautiful beaches. Solid rock. And everything in between.
Look in the window.
Now that's New Jersey. Plan your New Jersey trip at visitnj.org. Waves of fun. Nights of excitement. And a trail of memories. Now that's New Jersey.
Welcome back to Press Conference. I'm your host, Jim Delorenzo, and my guest today is Antonio Visconti, the founder and CEO of SOBEREYE, a unique and innovative solution to detect job risk impairment on the job. And Antonio, during the break, we were talking a little bit about the risk of impairment, and some of the material that we've been working on together talks about this being the next big workplace solution comparable to wearing a hard hat on a job. Can you tell me a little bit more about how an employer who is concerned about risk and impairment, how important SOBEREYE can be to them?
Certainly. One of the major challenges around workplace accidents, because at the end of the day, when we say we want to test for impairment, really what we're proposing, our solution is that we have a solution to prevent accidents.
Right.
And accident, besides having just a huge human and social cost, people getting hurt or getting killed, for the companies has also an enormous impact financially and in terms of image. And so the bottom line is that by being able to test for impairment, the company really, the employers are really focusing on preventing accidents, so taking care of their employees, right? To saving lives.
Right.
As opposed, if you think about it, we talked previously about the drug testing, and we said that everybody knows drug testing does not detect impairment. Drug testing only detects past use. So compare now the two solutions. The drug testing only helps you to find people that have been using drugs, drug users. Is that safety? I don't think so. Our solution is that it tells you that the person at the moment that comes to work is in a state that it's not ideal for that person to do a dangerous task. And so now you can do something, right? Something like, reassign the person, ask them to rest, or, reassign them for half a day, for a full day, to something that is less dangerous. At the end of the day, it's an effective solution. I like to mention a statistic that is very important.
Sure.
And anybody that works in safety is very familiar with it. 90% of accident reports list as a contributing cause human error. But if you think about it, human error cannot be a cause. It is not a cause. Human error is a consequence. Something makes you make a mistake, all right? So, and that's where we come into place, all right?
Yeah.
These generic human errors, well, we can help to prevent that.
It's interesting, too, that you mentioned that statistic, because we kind of have gotten to a point in some industries and in some workplaces where that's almost a given, and it's taken for granted that there's going to be human error, but no one's really addressing what caused the human error. And with SOBEREYE, you're discussing a way to prevent that human error from happening, because you can see that there is something going on here that we need to stop for a moment and reflect. What types of companies are using SOBEREYE right now in their workplaces? I know you've mentioned some industries, and we tend to think of things like construction, but there are other industries that are using this, correct?
That's correct. So we are focused on the sectors, industry sectors, where people are exposed to risk, and certainly construction is one of those where people they operate heavy equipment, or they climb in height. They work on ceilings, on roofs. The other industries that we address is the transportation industry, right? Anybody that drives something is at risk of being in an accident and killing themselves or other people. The other sector that also we are very involved is mining, oil and gas, again, for the same reasons. And also, operation like, warehousing, where they use forklift and, they have to
Sure.
take big things from one place to another, and there is, people working around. So all those are the areas where, let's say, the possibility of an accident are high, and the consequence of an accident are very significant.
One of the things I find interesting, Antonio, in our discussions in the past and in some of the materials you have on your website, you talk about no one goes to work on a given day saying, I'm probably going to cause an accident, and I'm going to either hurt myself or hurt somebody else. So no one goes into their work day saying, I really want this to happen. What they really want to do is get home from work safe and sound at the end of the day. And when you're testing for this impairment, as you describe it, you're really doing a 1-minute test at the beginning of the workday that can save not only the individual's life, but the lives of their coworkers, or protecting their families and their everybody's lives. Correct?
That's correct. If you can imagine, the sectors that we are focusing on, you can imagine, the people that do this dangerous job. This is, tough people. People that, they have a get-go attitude. And by the way, most of us are the same, in the sense that we have the tendency, if we do not feel really well or maybe a little tired, to just push through. Yes, I can do it, to minimize the fact that, again, feeling tired or not feeling okay. And what our technology does actually helps the people to learn about themselves, because as you mentioned before, when people take the test result is immediate. So the people receives an immediate feedback of their status. And because they know that the technology is objective, right? It's not judgmental.
Right.
It's not somebody, tapping you on the shoulder and saying, you do not look all right, and so people get defensive. The technology is objective. And so when they see the result, they think about it. They say, hey, what happens? Why I'm triggering these, high risk of impairment result? And actually, this has a tremendous educational effect on the people, where they says, hey, these things, it tells me that I'm not okay. Well, and you know what? I didn't sleep well last night. Or, whatever reason, they knew what may have caused it. And so by receiving this feedback, they make behavioral changes. They get, they adopted safer behaviors, because now they know that if, they do not sleep well at night, or that they go to bed too late, they are putting themselves at risk. And as you correctly say, nobody goes to work expecting to get hurt or get killed, right? You want to put your honest day of work, hard work, and then go back to your family at the end of the day. And actually, because of that, we have a tremendous success, not only in helping the employer, right, that says, we don't want accident, but the employees. And they are very appreciative of the technology, and actually is extremely well accepted by anybody using it.
And I think it's interesting too, you mentioned that the employee becomes educated, the guy on the line becomes educated to, okay, this is what's happening. I didn't know this before. This is going to be helpful to me. I'm going to change something in my life. And the employer gets the information, the company gets the information that, okay, this is what's happening to our employees right now. We can see who needs, some assistance or might need something, so we can make sure that they get taken care of, but we also know that they have the information that they can make the decisions themselves. We don't have to push them into anything. We're not being coercive, and we're not invading their privacy. They're making the decision on their own.
That's correct. And let me add one aspect of our technology that makes it so much more acceptable to the employees, and the concept of respecting the privacy. The technology does not identify the cause of impairment. If somebody does not pass the test saying, you are impaired, but does not say that you're impaired for drugs or alcohol or for whatever other reason. It just says you are impaired, and if you right now do a dangerous task, you're putting yourself at risk. Okay, so at the end of the day, no employer can, point a finger and say, "Oh, you're a drug addict." The only thing that they can do is something extremely useful and extremely important and actionable. Is the fact that says, "Okay, right now you should not be doing this dangerous task." Right?
Sure.
So let's work together. Let's make sure that it doesn't happen again. That you are impaired and you know what you need to do. And for today, we'll put you on a safer task, and so we minimize the risk for both. It's a win-win.
Now, when you're out there in the marketplace, you're out there implementing SOBEREYE at various workplaces. What is the reaction that you get from the worker on the line, and what is the reaction that you get from the company safety managers?
Well, the safety managers that really care about safety, they immediately get it. I think that the major challenge that we face, it's more about the habit of saying, "Well, we've been doing drug tests. That's what we do." So it's the fact that they've been in a sort of a compliance mode. I'm doing what everybody else is doing. And this requires a little bit of shift. It says, no, wait a minute. Whatever I've been doing and everybody's doing, it's really not effective. All the statistics shows that.
Gotcha.
This is a new way to approaching that. And so it's a little bit of the inertia of the new technology, the new philosophy, the new approach. But then, when people look into it, they learn more about it. We have an enthusiastic endorsement, and people use it, and they're really happy with it.
And I think it's interesting how quickly the employees, the workers, buy into the concept after they've been introduced to it over a couple days. They begin to see, this can really help me.
Well, think of yourself. I mean, what do you choose, right? First of all, you want to go back to your family at the end of the day, so you want to be safe. And what's the alternative? Being a cop, having a drug test that, again, it's a huge invasion of privacy, or just having 1 minute test where, you look in a little enclosure or put it over your eyes and nobody knows what you did. But at the same time, everybody wins because it helps you to stay safe on the job.
Now, Antonio, we're coming close to the end of our time together on the show, but I want to ask our viewers if they're interested in what Antonio and I have been discussing today. You should go to SOBEREYE, SOBEREYE.com for more information. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, Antonio, how would they do that?
Well, my email address is my first name dot last name, Antonio.Visconti @SOBEREYE.com. So send me an email. I'll be glad to chat.
And if you're a safety manager or a company owner who is concerned about the employee safety issues, and you see this as an alternative or a better way of doing this, based on some of the conversations Antonio and I have had, and on some of the conversations I've had with some of his clients, I can attest to the fact that it's been very effective and is a very, very needed aspect of workplace safety. Thank you, Antonio, for being my guest today. I really appreciate you taking the time with me. I encourage our viewers to take a look. And I also thank our viewers for tuning in today, a really important subject that we discussed on workplace safety. I look forward to conversations with you in the near future. If you have an idea for a show or have a concept that you want to discuss, feel free to give me a call, 215-266-5943, or send me an email, jim@jhdenterprises.com. Again, I look forward to seeing you all again here very, very soon. Have a good day.